No. No. Hope so. Okay, so like I said, I'm not sure if there's a provincial election here in Manitoba or if it's a regional thing or whatever, but regardless, go out and vote, please. You know, you deserve to have your voices heard. Advance voting starts today on Friday, uh, June 9th. Um, can't make it tomorrow, and Sunday you have the ability to go and vote as well. Okay, so now that I have to retry that or retry this, um, so yeah, we're gonna be going over the filibuster attempt by Pierre Poilievre, which is laughable, as well as we'll get into the fucking horrific shit that a landlord in Hamilton did to one of their tenants. They fucking murdered them. And then we might get into some other stuff as well. So, I guess we'll get into that then. Hopefully, stream doesn't crap out again. So, first things first, I want to go over this. So, for my fellow Manitobans who are going to the polls, whatever, you know, this is something that you should be aware of when it comes to the fucking PPC. I just think, regardless, everyone, even if you don't live in Manitoba, you should be aware of what these idiots are doing. So, the PPC has released some of their internal policies, as well as some of their things that they're going to be doing, or what they would like to do if they ever hold any form of power. Which is laughable. I don't think they will. So first things first, get into this, and then we'll get into the failed attempt of Poilievre filibustering, which is really fun. Which is really funny. A new policy announced by the leader of the People's Party Canada in Manitoba on Tuesday is sparking fears among the LGBTQ2S communities across the nation. Speaker at a press event in Winkler, Manitoba, party leader Maxime Bernier announced a new policy which takes aim at radical gender ideology. Hey, that's about radical gender ideology. Keep in mind that this lunatic is one of the options in my fucking riding, right? So keep that in mind, right? Going forward. I already voted, and I didn't vote for this fucking loser. Chances are the conservatives here are going to win anyways. But this still needs to be talked about. Sure. Yeah, I know it's raining. I just heard it raining. So yeah, the fucking lunatic who is in my writing was wait, I need um doing that. Okay, so like I can't necessarily say that I blame, you know, our community for being fucking terrified, or my community for being fucking terrified of this, because as we'll see, it's completely fucking psychotic. Um, with the active support of the woke far left, yeah, totally, they have any fucking power within the country. And all established parties, radical trans activists are trying to transform society in a way that uh, that rules everyone's freedoms. Bernier said during a press conference, this radical agenda, which contradicts basic biology realities, is proving particularly harmful to women and children. So the funny thing is that, you know, this isn't this like he's actually wrong on this. You know, basic biology, like if he's going off of like shit you're taught in like middle school, then sure. But like biology is a lot more complicated subject than this fucking dumbass thinks it is, right? So the thing is, right, is that even if you want to make the nature argument, it still doesn't make any sense, because nature is super fucking gay and super fucking trans, right? Uh, excellent examples of this will be the uh, primates, like say chimpanzees, for example, will enact gay sex to prevent fighting and squabbles within their group and in their society. Lions will engage in gay sex to strengthen their pride. And don't even get me started on some of the fish. Some of the fish are super fucking trans. Like say um clownfish, for example. Like I'm gonna ruin I'm going to fucking ruin Finding Nemo for everybody. But um yeah, no, clownfish change genders like all the fucking time so that they're able to repopulate and everything. And when it comes down to that movie, I get why they did it, right? Or why they didn't do it. But the thing is that Nemo's dad would have turned female, and they would have been just fine. But like, yeah, it's so fun. It's so fucking funny, and like this right here, like it's harmful to women and children. How? That's what I want to know, is how, right? It's literally not a thing that's happening. He's most likely referring to fucking um most likely fucking referring to the the kids allegedly that are doing so, right? That are like allegedly getting fucking um like surgery in like very fringe cases that that are heavily like they go under like heavy intensive psychiatric stuff, right? As well as, generally speaking, um um as well as like, like they're very, like I said, they're very fringe, so it like almost never happens. and they'll also be like consent of like 3 parties usually, right? You know, the um the parent, the child, and the fuck dude. I'm just running a blank, and like the doctor as well, right? So, but this is nothing. Uh it's really fucking stupid, right? Um so yeah, chances are he's not gonna fucking winnow here anyways. Brennan Leisure is most likely, I think his name is most likely gonna win, so it doesn't even matter. Like, even if hypothetically Maxime Bernier does win, like, it doesn't matter because he's just gonna vote the same as fucking conservatives anyways, so it literally makes no difference. So here's his policy that he's fucking running on. The policy lays out a 7-point plan, which includes modifying the criminal code to outlaw the use of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and any form of bodily manipulation on minors, with the goal of transitioning to another sex. Now, first off, here's the thing, right? Especially in like teenage years, there are, if I'm not mistaken, I think there are 2 major procedures that happen all the time. Uh, um, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're nose jobs and then like breast. What is it, like? Either breast reduction surgery or breast alignment surgery, right? Like those are the 2 main ones, right? But you don't hear him speaking out against that because it's the heteronormative thing to do, right? And I like automatically they automatically think that, like, fucking trans people are like, you know, having sex and all that and whatever. Like it's the same shit that was going on with like gay individuals back in the day, right? I mean, it still happens to a certain degree as well, but you know. Um, Protecting women's spaces, bathrooms, change rooms, shelters, prisons from intrusion by biological men. Literally doesn't fucking happen. Abolishing federal programs that fund sex change operations for civil servants and prisoners. Yeah, the thing is that this will most likely be challenged in the Supreme Court. He will most likely lose this. Removing working now. Yeah. Let's go. Okay, but yeah, no, if like, this doesn't speak to where their fucking party aligns, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is straight up Nazi shit, right? Hi. Bro. Oh, you can't go down there. Did you decide to come here? But yeah, no, that's where their fucking alignments are. Strictly enforcing section 163.1 1B of the criminal code to remove inappropriate pornographic content from schools and libraries, which Action for Canada defines as sexual, explicit, or pornographic books that are made available to children via schools and public libraries. Oh, yeah. Trying to get my food. So the funny thing about this, right, is that literally none of this is happening. Like, they're not showing any fucking porn in schools, right? And the funny thing about this is that you could actually, like, places in America, I think it's Florida. I think it's Florida, have um made the Bible as one of the books that, you know, these dumbasses don't realize could easily be classified as that. Uh, but yeah, you could make arguments for the Bible because, like, there's a lot of fucking explicit uh acts within the Bible, right? So you could easily do that. Maintaining separate comparisons to women for women in which biological men cannot participate in sports regulated by funding by the federal government, repealing which doesn't happen. Like, the funny thing is that, you know, the trans athletes are, you know, not fucking transitioning to get uh like to win fucking women's basketball in like high school or some shit like that. It's not happening, right? Like, you get lost. Fucking can't. And like the funny thing is that, like, let's let's use the NBA as an example, right? Or actually no, let's use more American or a more Canadian thing. Let's use the NHL, right? Um, bro, let's use the NHL as an example. Do you really think that, like, people like Wayne Gretzky, for example, like, I know he's retired and everything, but do you really think people like fucking Wayne Gretzky would get a sex change operation to dominate somewhere where, you know, he was um can't be under there. Um but yeah, uh like, do you honestly think that Wayne Gretzky would take a pay cut just to, like, theoretically dominate the um uh theoretically dominate the women's league? Absolutely fucking not. Why the hell would he, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense that he would. So that's a nothing issue. Repealing Bill C-16, which makes gender self-identification grounds for protection against discrimination. Not surprising. This is the tweet that he said. Today I announced the new People's Party policy on radical gender ideology at a press conference in Winkler. This evil agenda, which contradicts basic biology realities and particularly harmful to women and children. Yeah. Should Canadians be concerned? The PPC only won 820,000 votes, making up about 5% of the popular vote during the 2021 federal election. Except experts say that the rise in popularity of the party, which holds far-right values, cannot be ignored. Which I completely agree. We should not be ignoring this. Even if you are a conservative voter, right? Do keep in mind that the Conservative Party, regardless of if it's federal, provincial, municipal, whatever, looks to this and continues. Like continues as rhetoric, right? The freeze again? Bro, what is going on with the internet today? But yeah, like the Conservative Party looks at far right fringes of either other parties or high or even of their own party, say like Daniel Smith, for example. And he's like, you know what, that's a good strategic plan. You know, dumbass hogs are going to vote for us anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Because like at this point, like it's almost like laughable that there's a difference between the Conservatives and the PPC. Like one's just more openly racist, like transphobic, homophobic, misogynistic than the other, right? And like I love the fact that these right-wing dumbasses say, you know, oh, we need to protect the children and whatever, and women and whatever. But when it actually comes down to legislation that would genuinely help women, children, whatever, they vote against it. So which side are you on, right? Make up your goddamn mind, bud. Just say it with your chest. I can openly say that I am a fucking communist in a very conservative area. Just say it with your fucking chest. Historically, Bernier has denied ties and affiliations to far-right groups and white nationalists, despite his public stance on reducing immigration and scrapping the Multiculturalism Act, which is unsurprising. What the fuck is going on with my internet today? A more concerning incident involving the PPC is a report by Press Progress, which exposed candidate Mario. How the hell did you get up there? No, 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 no. No, 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 no. You can't be there. Can't be there. Get lost. Which exposed PPC candidate Mario Rico for allegedly creating a video game in which users were able to shoot cartridges of, or caricatures, sorry, of minors and of minorities and LGBTQ 2S people, which is unsurprising, right? Like, these fucking idiots do this shit all the goddamn time. Nazi's gonna Nazi, right? Like, you know, I think that we should fucking, like, do something about it. For sure. So, yeah. I think lots of people are wondering if he's Bernier just going to say, I'm not here for the to form government. I'm here to challenge the system as a way to gain support, Small said in a previous interview with media, which is really fucking funny because, you know, I already know he doesn't care about my fucking support anyways, right? But, you know, it's gonna be a little bit challenging for even, like, you say liberals, for example, within my area, right? Like, it's not he's not he's gonna gain like the support of like the conservatives anyways, right? Because like the conservatives out here, like, there are, like, I'm not saying all conservatives out here are monolith, not at all. I've met conservatives out here that are fairly reasonable, right? But like the ones that are on the fringe anyways, he's going to be gaining the support of anyways, right? Where concerns are growing is the rise of anti-LGBTQ2S ideologies of hate speech instances occurring in Canada, which seem to reflect conversations and bills being passed in the United States, which is not surprising. Our two countries are inherently interlinked, so it's not surprising that that's happening. During 2023 movements fueled by national anti-LGBTQ US group, legislatures across the United States have overridden the recommendations of the American medical establishments. It's true. They introduced hundreds of bills that target transgender and non-binary youth's access to age-appropriate, medically necessary healthcare, according to non-government organization and a human rights campaign. Yeah, and like the thing is that oftentimes this care prevents them from committing suicide, right? But you don't hear these fucking fascists being like, "Oh no, I'm not you know, I'm all for, you know, protecting kids and everything, except for when it comes to like trans kids and, you know, making sure they don't commit suicide because they're fucking Nazis. Of course they don't give a shit. Like, you know, gay and trans people were fucking like one of the first people that they killed, right? Along with like communists and socialists as well. Like a lot of people like to overlook that and being like, you know, it was just the fucking Jews that they killed. No, they killed a fuck ton of Reds and a fuck ton of you know, gay and trans people and a fuck ton of disabled people as well. And like I'm seeing the exact same rhetoric from these fucking losers. They're just bitching and moaning about nothing like things that don't even exist. Right? So for the public response, if you think that we're safe in Canada, this is the final straw. We're not, wrote Celeste Tarian in a statement posted to Instagram. Which I don't know why they're giving. This is like, it's the right. We are only one election away from having our healthcare, civil liberties, and ability to live in public stolen away. We are one election away from becoming Florida. If the Conservatives adopt this platform, which they most likely will, because they've been seeing, like, I will give conservative politicians this. they watch what works and what doesn't work in the United States, and then they adopt it to Canadian politics, right? All our human rights are gone in a snap. This one, right? Yeah. PPC of Canada and Maxime Bernier, who got 5% of the vote in 2021, just announced their policy on radical gender ideology. Needless to say, the policy, if implemented in law, will end up killing trans kids, adults, and elders. This is my statement on the matter. Please share this widely and tell your to avoid the C and Bernier like the plague. Yeah, the funny thing is that, you know, Winkler just doesn't do that. Like, even my fucking dumbass small town doesn't do that either. Le Party. Oh, that's in French. Oh, I guess I could just read it here. Uh, other social issues, or other social media issues chimed in, or social media users chimed in expressing their concerns on how this policy has the potential to harm LGBTQ2S communities in Canada, and others slammed Bernier for his views. Well, some expressed that the current woke climate in Canada is taking things too far. Many couldn't defend the policy, spewing hateful thoughts. Some organizers are asking Canadians to support the LGBTQ2S community. I am greatly scared. This is why I feel I feel like I gotta hide. We're safe nowhere. Shared one Instagram user in a comment section of Celeste's post above. Another user commented, I have close friends in Florida and they are making a plan, an exit plan to leave there. And they told me that they are thinking of moving to Canada. I was wondering if it was just as bad here. Yeah, of course. 6 months later, you know, whatever America does, we do. Like, we are no better. The policy announced by the PPC is one held within the party and does not reflect any bill of law within Canadian Parliament currently. In a tweet posted in March 2023, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pledged his ongoing support to those within all facets of the LGBTQ2S community. With a disturbing rise in anti-transgender hate here in Canada and around the world recently, I want to be very clear on one more thing. Trans women are women. True, they are women. We will always stand up to this hate whenever and wherever it occurs, said the Prime Minister tweet. So yeah, I just want you to keep in mind when you guys are fucking voting, not to elect these fucking losers. Like, it's not gonna happen anyways, right? But, you know, it ultimately doesn't matter. Like, they're a bunch of fucking nobody losers who cry about literally nothing and have no basis in reality for any of their fucking policies. So keep that in mind. All right, let's move on to Pierre Poilievre and him trying to filibuster. Meanwhile, I'm going to kick this cat out of my room.
In the House of Commons, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre delivered a lengthy speech in an attempt to delay the adoption of the federal budget.
I am rising today to speak, and to speak, and to speak for the people who have no voice. The people who have been silenced for too long.
The leader's filibuster lasted more than 3.5 hours.
Yeah, 3.5 hours. And the funny thing is that here in Canada, we can choose to end fucking open debate at really any time, so it doesn't even matter. Like, they should have ended open debate like a long time. The dude was literally fucking talking about rugs, for Christ's sakes.
Before the House adjourned for the evening. Earlier Wednesday, Poilievre said he would speak non-stop to block the budget's passage until the Prime Minister commits to a balanced budget. On Monday, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland called the Conservative Party tactics adolescent partisan games and parliamentary childishness.
Yesterday, I spoke for 4 hours to stop the inflationary tax hiking Trudeau budget. Now, I did this not just because I disagree with the irresponsible overspending that has caused the inflation. I've long believed that. But because I believe we're headed to a very...
What? What irresponsible spending has he been doing? On, like, healthcare? What the fuck is he going on about?
Very serious crisis. Since the Prime Minister introduced his budget, there have been 3 major developments. One, the International Monetary Fund has identified Canada as the country most at risk of a mortgage meltdown, because we have...
Yeah, it's because here in Canada, we offer so many fucking protections to landlords and banks. And, that's what's fucking driving the price of mortgage and shit up. And rent and whatever. So, why don't you vote for, like, some form of fucking rent control, or present any fucking legislation for rent control, you idiot? Like, come on, bud.
The biggest household debt of any country in the G7. $2 trillion of household debt. In fact, our households have as much debt as the entire GDP.
This he's not actually wrong about. We do have a lot of household debt.
Second, inflation is now again on the rise. Something the Prime Minister promised was not going to happen. He claimed inflation was just going to fall. Now it's rising. I'm surprised when you pour tens of billions of dollars more of spending into the economy, you get more inflation. And third, the unexpected increase in interest rates that is going to be another uppercut to overly indebted Canadians who already can't afford their bills. I want you to think about this for a second. If you have a family that's paying $3,000 a month on mortgages, and they experience what the Bank of Canada projects will be a 40% increase in their monthly mortgage payment, that's $1,300 a month, which is almost $15,000 a year, when half of our households don't even have $200 left in their bank account. What is going to happen over the next 3 years as all of these mega mortgages renew at these higher rates? We're going to have defaults. We're going to have mass fire sales.
Okay, so then why don't you fucking promote any form of rent control legislation, or any form of decommodification of housing then? Oh wait, that's right. You're you invest into fucking apartment complex and have fucking and you're a fucking landlord. That's why. Right. We know that the fucking Liberals do that too. Like, it's not surprising in the slightest. Like, it's so fucking stupid.
Sales of homes as people can't make their payment, and all they can do is put their house in the market, but there won't be anyone to buy them because no one else can afford to pay the rates either. This could be a major financial meltdown. This is not me saying it, it's the IMF, it's the Bank of Canada. And the Prime Minister has to recognize these facts have changed since he
Oh, so when it fits your narrative, then you listen to the Bank of Canada. That's very convenient.
introduced his budget. And so I'm calling on him to do the honorable thing, to put aside his pride and his personal ego and cancel this budget.
The funny thing is that this budget is actually going to help out a lot of Canadians, if I'm not mistaken. Oh God, Jordan Peterson had him on. Automatic fucking L.
Hi there, I'm Rosemary Barton. Here's what's at issue this week.
I am rising today to speak and to speak and to speak for the people who have no voice. The people who have been silenced for too long.
The speaking ended before midnight because the opposition leader ran out of time, but the point was made. Inflation and another interest rate hike has made it difficult for Canadians, and the government needs to do more to help.
Yesterday I spoke for 4 hours to stop the inflationary tax hiking Trudeau budget. Now, I did this not just because I disagree with the irresponsible overspending that has caused the inflation. I've long believed that. But because I believe we're headed to a very serious crisis.
Pierre Poilievre said the Prime Minister should cancel his summer holidays and come up with a budget that works. Now, worth noting, the budget implementation bill passed this afternoon. But what's to be made of the Conservative strategy? How concerned should Canadians be? Let's bring everybody in. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, and Althea Ross. Good to see you all. Excuse my voice to you guys and everybody listening. Chantal, I'll start with you. Was this sort of theatrical? Was there a real and an important point that Pierre Poilievre was trying to make? Did he make it?
No.
What's your take?
One and the other.
His entire thing was he just wanted to delay things. He knew that this budget was going to get passed either way, so he wanted to make it or he just wanted to waste everyone's time. That's what it was.
Other important point, certainly, theater, too much of it for what it actually was. I mean, to listen to the Conservative leader early on in the week and then again to his caucus yesterday, it sounded like he was going to physically be on his feet until the government caved and came up with a deficit-free budget, which was never going to happen, and obviously didn't happen. Rarely is so much theater surrounded a 4-hour performance. But that being said, the point is important. I think the strategy is to pivot away from the China file and to go back to bread and butter issues that are closer to the hearts of voters. What's missing here are answers. I mean, getting rid of the carbon tax isn't going to resolve any of the big picture issues. So I'm guessing Mr. Poilievre will soon tell us how he would deal with the National Child Care Program, the health transfer to the provinces, which he has approved, the green economy incentives, the fate of dental care. These are all policies about which there is not a really known Conservative position.
I wouldn't hold your breath for that answer anytime soon, but I take your point. Andrew, the point that he's trying to make, I guess, as Chantal says, is that we also need to be, or maybe instead of talking about foreign interference, which I'm not sure is registering the same way for Canadians as, for instance, another interest rate hike this week.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm more than keen on having discussions about fiscal policy, but this was very strange. I mean, filibusters, as it was originally announced to be, are generally reserved either for some kind of abuse of power where the government's running roughshod over Parliament's prerogatives, or for some policy that the opposition thinks will cause irrevocable harm and for which the government doesn't have a mandate. But if we're talking about the carbon tax or deficit spending, I mean, say what you will about either of those policies, they've been pretty thoroughly litigated through 3 elections.
Yeah.
So what suddenly required them to go into filibuster mode, is particularly when it just fizzled out into basically a long speech and not
To win political points. That's all it was for.
much more than that. On the substance of it, look, I didn't like that budget at all either, but I don't see it as bringing on some immediate precipitous crisis that requires this kind of exaggerated rhetoric. It just looked like he was flailing around, frankly.
Well, even to say, as they did today, Althea, that Conservatives are not going to stop working all summer, and to contrast it with the idea that the Prime Minister's taking off on some holiday somewhere, which I assume he'll have a break like everybody else. But
I don't know what Justin Trudeau's summer plans are. I don't think they have been announced. Kind of to just drill the point home, though, this wasn't actually a filibuster. Like the filibusters that you see on TV from the floor of Congress, for example, are members who speak sometimes for days on end.
Yeah.
Pierre Poilievre announced that he was going to filibuster after the government had already passed a motion in the House limiting the time of debate to 5 hours.
Yeah.
So he couldn't have spoken for more than 5 hours without the unanimous consent of the chamber. So it's like faux outrage on top of faux outrage. The speech, I actually thought it wasn't so bad. I kind of veered off the rails around 11 o'clock because he kind of ran out of things to say and started repeating himself.
The dude literally talked about fucking carpets. If that isn't wasting time, I don't know what is.
But it had nothing to do with the budget. In fact, even the 904 amendments that the Conservatives brought forward had nothing to do with the budget. They were not substantive amendments. They were trying to delete each clause of the budget. I mean, it's just not serious. His speech did not talk about the budget. Instead, Pierre Poilievre started off telling us about how Henry VIII added copper to the sterling pound so he could have more money.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
He was very
He did that
concerned
too.
about the impending debt crisis that he sees on the horizon.
Because that's how inflation works, right? No, ended up fucking putting copper and silver coins to increase the increase the increase inflation or whatever the fuck he was going on about. We'll get into it.
And then he started talking about basically his own plans, what he would do on immigration, what he would do on housing. He told us he believes climate change is real, so there was some news around 10 o'clock at night. But it had nothing to do with the budget implementation.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, if you see what the fuck is, like, half of Canada's on fire right now, right? So, you know, like, Ontario alone is producing so much fucking smoke that's going down to New York, and even New Yorkers are being like, bro, it's not supposed to smell like burning garbage, it's supposed to smell like wet garbage and hot piss, which I find really funny. Goddamn New Yorkers, I love you.
Act. It had everything to do with Pierre Poilievre using the floor to introduce himself again to anybody who's paying attention.
Which, by the way, he's pretty good at.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, when he puts down the attack dog mode, he's pretty good at explaining his economic philosophy. You can put it in layman's terms. He's quite fluent. I'd like to see more of this character.
Well, he's good at doing a speech, that's for sure, even if it goes 4.5 hours and not everybody's listening. Chantal.
Not everybody is listening. I suspect the press conference today was to try to say, I spoke last night and here's what I was trying to say.
It's purely for political points. That's all it's for.
Reconnect the Conservative Party with the issue that's been uppermost on the minds of Canadians this week. And yes, the hike in interest rate was of interest, but forest fires and what's been happening literally the feeling that
Yeah,
Canada is
and the
burning.
funny thing is that the opposition NDP, when it came down to uh, Ontario's legislature, and criticizing Doug Ford about it for slashing so many funds to firefighting and wildfire prevention, he cried and said, "You're making forest fires too political." I'm like, bro, you're in the fucking chamber or the legislature. Of course it's going to be political in there. Like, what?
With its impact on the U.S. was very much on everyone's mind. And until this news conference this morning, the Conservatives were not very much into that picture. In question period or in that speech last night, it was as if it was taking place on another planet. But to the points that my colleagues have made, yes, it is possible for Pierre Poilievre to deliver substantial speeches, but he seems to be wedded to gimmicks that get in the way of the speeches and the policy statements that he is trying to articulate. And I don't know why they think this is a smart way to go about it.
Althea?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I think it is, he's still trying to introduce himself. The polls in Quebec show as Chantal pointed out last week, he's not doing so great. And some polls in Ontario suggest he's not doing so great either. So he's trying to use all the opportunities that are in front of him. I actually think that the interest rate was a good one for him because he has been warning about this for a long time. That was not a good announcement for the government. So, he was piggybacking on those events. And I do think the problem with Pierre Poilievre when he starts talking is that there is good substance, frankly, a lot more substance than a lot of other parliamentarians, but there is also this tendency to exaggerate. And then when you start talking about Justin Trudeau being a socialist authoritarian leader, this stuff doesn't ring true at all. So it discredits the rest of the substance that is in his speech that's actually good.
Andrew?
Yeah, for a guy who made a point of announcing he was running for prime minister when he was running for leader of the Conservative Party, at some point somebody has to take him aside and say, it's time to start looking like a prime minister. And we have not seen a great deal of that.
Although if the goal was to get people talking about him and the Conservatives on the economy, here we are talking about it. Maybe that was the only goal, to try and take back some of that narrative, Chantal.
Maybe so, but it would be possible to have that conversation and say, here is an aspiring prime minister delivering a serious speech. You would have to take away all the bluster and frankly, the over-the-top assertions that surrounded it, including the fact that he is demanding that the budget be scrapped and that it be rewritten with the Conservatives. Who needs that?
Yeah.
How credible does that make him look?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Welcome to another round of At Issue. Earlier this week, David Johnston appeared before Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Interference.
We're not going to get into this. But David Johnston gave his testimony at a committee. I don't really care about, honestly. Like, even if they do get a new judge, it's not really going to make sense anyways. I said this last time.
In the House of Commons.
So yeah, Friedland's bill passes. So yeah, the federal budget implementation bill passed the House of Commons on Thursday after days of Conservatives' attempt to block it. By a vote of 177 to 146, Bill C-47, the Budget Implementation Act 2023, number 1, as it's titled, passed the final stage of the House with support from the Liberals and NDP, while Conservatives and Le Bloc Québécois voted nay. It is now off the Senate, where a pre-study of the ambitious legislation already underway. The 430-page bill was tabled August, or April. I am April, following Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrysler Freeland unveiling a plan to continue deficit spending targeted at Canadians, pocketbooks, healthcare, and the clean economy. After some holdup in the House of Commons Finance Committee, May Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre came to the House this week with plans to try to halt passage after the Liberals signed plans midnight to use midnight setting work through the final stages of Bill C7 Monday and Tuesday. The journey, the official opposition's procedural toolbox started with stacking the notice papers with more than 900 attempts seeking to wipe out most of the budget, and a demand for Poilievre, and that if the Liberals didn't heed his demands to present a plan to balance the budget and cancel any future carbon price increases, that he'd use other measures to block it. On Wednesday night, after MPs moved the municipal amendments and branches, Poilievre vowed to filibuster debate at the final stage. Except the House has already passed a time allocation motion, meaning that Poilievre could and did monopolize the final hours of debate. He monopolized the final hours of the debate, but he was cut off just before the clock struck midnight. On Thursday, with the final vote already scheduled for Thursday afternoon, he came to the Hill with a new plan, telling reporters he was willing, if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau canceled his other plans, to work all summer long to rewrite a budget that balances budgets in order to bring down inflation and interest rates. Yeah, sure. Poilievre said he thought his efforts this week, seeing the bill come to vote in a few days later than the Liberals had initially hoped, were very successful. By the time the vote took place, Poilievre was not in the chamber, opting to vote virtually instead. The bill passage was met with cheers from the government side of the House, while one opposition MP could be heard suggesting that now the Liberals could prorogue a rumor that continues to circulate despite repeated government denials. In criticizing the Conservatives, in criticizing the Conservatives for trying to hold up the rest of the budget this week, a number of Liberals rose in the House and posted on social media to highlight the workers' benefits and housing affordability measures. They said the official opposition was delaying to be rolled out the door for Canadians. Does Poilievre not support dental care? Does he not support supports for workers or students? Does he not support a vast preponderance of the budget, which is for healthcare and for changing to the new economy, said Government House Leader Mark Holland. Let's go, it's my boy. The answer to that is all no. He doesn't care about. He doesn't give a shit about you. He doesn't give a shit about us. So, just a few weeks before Parliament is slated to adjourn for the summer, even with the advanced study underway, it remains to be seen if the Conservative senators try to tie up the legislation its own ways. I mean, we could see if they do or not, right? In a move that had all parties backing, in May Freeland was able to fast track and pass a bill that pulled out two measures from the federal budget: the grocery rebate and the health transfer top up. Yeah. Come on, man. As interest rates rose again Wednesday, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre made good on a promise to tie up the House of Commons, speaking for hours in bid to prevent the government from passing a budget which he said will drive Canada into a full-scale financial crisis. This is on the verge of becoming crisis. Pierre Poilievre told Caucus Wednesday, Justin Trudeau, you and your spending are out of control, and your debt and taxation are leading us head on to full-scale financial crisis. And do not need, and I will not let you do that. Yet the funny thing is that even under like Harper, right? Harper didn't have yeah, sure, Harper dealt with the 2008 recession, right? But he didn't have to deal with a fucking pandemic and the fallout of said pandemic, right? It's a little bit more I would argue that the pandemic was a little bit more devastating than the fucking financial crash. After the Bank of Canada raised its benchmark interest rate Wednesday to 4.75%, the Conservative leader said the federal budget $40.1 billion deficit was driving inflation, and he would not block this disastrous, risky, and inflammatory or inflationary budget from passing. Okay. You want to know what's actually causing fucking inflation? Greed by a lot of the owning class, right? You know, people like say Galen Weston or the fucking banks or fucking landlords and all that. I will be on my feet roughly at 7 p.m. to stand against this budget, and I will keep speaking and keep blocking this inflationary train wreck until the Prime Minister rises with a plan to balance the budget and bring down inflation and interest rates, Poilievre said. I don't think he knows how inflation works. I genuinely don't think he knows how inflation works. Conservative leader pointed to the International Monetary Fund starting last month that of 38 mostly advanced economies, Canada was one of the highest risk of mortgage defaults because of high levels of household debt compared to similar economies. On Wednesday evening, Poilievre spoke in the House of Commons until nearly midnight. During his hours-long speech, he invoked historical figures like the British former Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Ugh, gross. And economists Milton Fried. Oh no. Oh no. Gross. And John Menard Haynes to criticize the Liberal government's fiscal policies. Conservative leader also condemned the Liberals' response to the opioid crisis, which government's housing policy and the recently passed online streaming bill, among other things. Okay. An official speaker's office said that because the House of Commons on Tuesday passed a time allocation motion which limits debate at third reading of the budget bill to 1 day, debate would end shortly before midnight on Wednesday. The official said that the House would adjourn to appoint and vote on the budget bill will be called in the House Thursday afternoon after question period. On Monday, the Conservatives introduced more than 900 amendments to the budget. They promised to do whatever it takes to halt passage through Parliament unless the government presents a plan to balance the budget. Promises no new carbon tax hikes. If the government does not meet these demands, we will all ridicule. We all will use all procedural tools at our disposal to block the budget from passing, including 900 amendments, lengthy speeches, and other procedural tools that are in our toolkit, Poilievre said Monday. The Bank of Canada's interest rate hikes this week was the first since January, when the bank said it would conditionally pause its aggressive campaign of rate hikes to see whether it had served to bring down inflation. Inflation reached a high of 8.1% in July last year and was declining steadily since, hitting 4.3% in March. But the bank was prompted to act when inflation bounced up 4.4% in April. The bank said Wednesday it expects to fall off after about 3% in the summer. Poilievre said the rise in inflation in April was a direct result of the Liberal government's decision to continue running deficits in which he said pumps more money into the economy, causing prices to rise. No, that's not how that works. It's clear we know that if there's no money to buy less goods and services, these products and services will cost more, he said earlier evening. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Friedland responded the rate hike by trying to reassure Canadians about the state of the economy. She said that last year Canada had the highest economic growth in G7, which is true. That the OECD said Canada that the OECD said Canada will be the fastest average rate of growth the coming year. That Canada's credit rating is AAA, and the country's deficit ratio is the lowest in the G7. True, it is. Most important of all are the 900,000 more Canadians working today than there were working before COVID first hit, she added. Having a good job is the key to the well-being of every single Canadian and family, and that is the strength we have. All right, so let's get into some of the fucking dumb shit Pierre Poilievre said during his speech.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, pictured here demanding an even smaller cup of coffee so that he can look big. He wants to look like a giant. Anyway, he tried to filibuster Parliament yesterday, standing up and rambling about nothing at all for over 4 hours. This to try to block our budget. And he knew it wasn't going to work. This was just for show. This had no chance of working. It was just to annoy everybody. To waste hours of time in Parliament as wildfires rage around him.
Yeah.
Why? To block climate measures in the budget. Because the man has no sense of irony. And for the record, the budget passed anyway. So he accomplished nothing. Except making an absolute fool of himself. I'm going to show you two...
Yeah, it's really like, there's no sense of irony with that guy, right? It's so fucking funny. Like, yeah, it's funny, man. I honestly don't even know what to say, because there's so much fucking irony there.
Two clips to give you a sense of just how productive this filibuster was. Want to hear him ramble about silver for a while? Let's go to the tape.
There was a difficulty in creating cash in his time, and that is that the British pound was actually a pound of silver. And when you run out of silver, you run out of the ability to make money. So he had this coin, a silver coin. What was he going to do? How could he create cash when it was created by silver? And he had no more silver left. He'd already spent all of the silver. You know what he did? He had his smelters melt it down and remint it with copper on the inside, a tiny little layer of silver on the outside. And then he could multiply the number of coins almost without limit. I know that you're anxious to hear the rest of the story.
Real thrilling stuff. How about hearing him talk about carpets? Dude's really into carpets.
Yeah.
It's worse than
this is what I was mentioning. The dude literally fucking was talking about carpets during his fucking speech.
It reminds me of the green floors in this place. You know, and we wonder, why is it green? Why is the other place red? Well, of course, this place is green because the first commoners met in the fields of Runnymede. In fact, the first House of Commons, the first parliaments, happened in the fields. And they represented those who worked and harvested the fields. They were the ones responsible for the bounty. And we should never forget, every time we look at the green, let us think of the people who continue to work figuratively and literally in the fields in order to deliver the harvest, the abundant harvest
that is our blessing in this country, the prodigious harvest.
Yeah, it like I said, it's pretty fucking stupid. All right, let's get on to some LGBTQ plus hatred that's been going on within Canada. Remember how we said it was never going to happen here? Well, guess what?
This is the first weekend of Pride Month, but this year in several Ontario communities there has been pushback against raising the Pride flag on public property.
Can't even fly a piece of cloth. How can students feel safe?
It doesn't align with our Catholic values, and that's fundamentally why I voted against it.
Fuck your
This
Catholic
was the scene
values.
near Toronto at the York Catholic School Board this week. The council voted 6-4 against raising the flag on school property. The decision came after advocates and critics clashed over the issue for months. A few months ago in Norwich, Ontario, a bylaw was introduced to exclude the Pride flag and all non-civic flags to be flown on township property. For more on this issue, we wanted to look into the history of the rainbow flag known as the Pride flag. So we invited James Farragut onto the program. You see him there. He's with the North American Vexillological Association. It's a mouthful, and it also means the study of flags. And James, you witnessed just how the Pride flag came to be popular. So welcome to the program. Thanks for giving us some time.
Well, thank you. You're very welcome, and thank you for having me.
So you worked with the creator, Gilbert Baker, the creator of the original Pride flag. So I want to take you back in time, if you could, to help us understand
Certainly.
how that connection began for you.
Well, I was the retail manager of the Paramount Flag Company in San Francisco, California. And happily, or concurrently, the flag was coming on to the local scene. It had been used in the Pride Parade in 1978. In 1979, Gilbert wanted to decorate Market Street in San Francisco with the colors of the Pride flag. Now you have to remember that the original flag he made had 8 stripes, and so he had designed decorations that contained 8 stripes. The problem was, or not the problem, but the situation was that 2 of the colors, the hot pink and the turquoise, which were available as
I've seen conservatives say shit like this is like the pink is for like fucking like like child predators who enjoy children, and then the blue is for fucking child predators who enjoy fucking boys or some shit like that. It's just like, what the fuck? No, these are the fucking trans pride colors. Like, it's utterly ridiculous, if you ask me.
fabrics, but they were a premium fabric.
That they would
were
say
more
that shit.
expensive. They weren't in the normal palette of colors that flag makers use to make international and state and provincial flags. And so they would have frankly been a budget buster. So, and also hot pink was not a fast dye. It would fade very quickly. And so the vice president of Paramount explained to the organizers of the parade that we'd have to remove, or recommended removing the pink, both as a practical matter and as an economy matter. But that left 7 stripes. So, you know, we can't do 7 split on either sides of a light pole. So turquoise fell victim to
the funny thing about like these communities, right, is that for the most part, I don't really think anyone cares about like the pride flag flying during Pride Month, right? And like chances are it's probably only like 3 it's probably like only like 3 individuals who are complaining about it.
And so that they standardized at 6 stripes.
Yo, Trump
And
got
that was
indicted again.
It was really practical
That
factory
is
considerations,
funny.
or manufacturing considerations that led to the standardization of the flag at 6 stripes. Prior to
Okay.
that, they had originally the original one was 8. Of course, 7 was very popular because of the artist rainbow. But I purchased flags from all over the world, and they had as few as 5 and as many as a dozen stripes.
And we'll talk
So
about
6
Sorry to jump in. I just want to
Sure.
make sure I get all my questions to you in our time. We'll talk about the
Understood.
Progress Pride flag, which does have more colors today. I'll talk about that with you in a moment. But I want to ask you, in my introduction, I mentioned that in Canada there has been a pushback against flying the Pride flag in many locations, some of its schools, some of its towns, and I know you're seeing.
Yeah, and it's like 3 fucking dumbass hogs who are complaining about it. Like, most people just don't give a shit, right?
Similar resistance in many states in the United States as well, some of the state houses in the
Yes.
U.S. I want your take on why you think this pushback now.
Well, I think it's multi causality, which is uh, the flag as it was conceived by Gilbert Baker, was really a celebratory flag. There had been previous gay pride or gay activist flags, generally involving pink triangles or other symbols, and he wanted a thing that would be celebratory rather than commemorative or memorial. You know, the pink triangle has origins with the Third Reich, and so they felt that wasn't really an appropriate
Yeah,
symbol
understandably so, right? Like, I don't think anyone would agree with that.
for parades, which were supposed to be, as I said, more celebratory.
Right.
And so,
But why now,
when
do
they,
you think? Are we seeing, I mean, it has been so internationally adopted. Why now?
that's right. Well, I think part of it, I think there's several reasons. One is fear. People who don't understand the origins of the flag and think that it is perhaps part of a political agenda, and in some cases that may be true. But the display of the flag, and also we can get into which flag we're going to display, uh, carries with it a little bit of an emotional wallop. Sometimes, flags are something people will fight for and die for, but they're also something people
Yeah,
will kill
not
for.
wrong.
And so I don't think that was Gilbert's intent with this flag. Certainly, it's not the case in San Francisco and many cities in the United States. But for example, a rainbow flag or a pride flag was just burned in North Hollywood yesterday. And they're talking about charging the perpetrator with a hate crime. Yet, if he had burned the United States flag, that would be considered free speech. So it's really a double-edged sword if you
James,
start banning things.
what goes through your mind when you're seeing the protest, the burnings, that kind of thing today?
Well, I don't like to see any flag burn, but that's just me personally. I understand the powerful impact that can have, because although it may be textile.
I mean, I don't agree with him, right? I think if you want to burn a fucking flag, burn it. I don't care. It is a form of fucking free speech, right? Major thing about it though is generally speaking, especially when it's like, your country's or like a country flag burning, it usually means like there's a lot of it usually means like there's a systemic failure within that country, right? And people have been starting to lose hope, right? Which is why when it comes down to protesting, you'll often see imagery of a burning flag, right?
It's really an idea. And that's what it really boils down to, how we're going to be using, or how people react to the idea. And the idea behind the original rainbow flag was that it represents the family of man. And so just as if we removed any single stripe from the rainbow, we destroy the integrity of the rainbow, so too with the family of man. If we exclude any group for either gender, nationality, class, for whatever reason, we destroy the integrity of the family. That was the motivation behind the original flag. However, in modern times,
Looks like my man's about to play some Fortnite, not gonna lie.
other groups, for whatever reason, felt either not included or wanted to be added. That was when the Philadelphia Pride flag came about, and then most recently, Daniel Quasar's Progress Pride flag, which is already being modified. People who felt not included in that flag have started to either add chevrons or other symbols to that flag. So we're witnessing really this flag is still evolving, just like Canada's flag, when it was first promulgated in the 1870s, it evolved as different provinces wanted to be represented. So too in the United States. You know, states jumped the gun and started adding their stars to the U.S. flag even before they had adopted statehood. And so people just want to be a part of something. And so that's how these things evolve.
I was not expecting to learn about fucking flags. It's like the fun with flags bit on Big Bang Theory a little bit.
New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs.
So yeah, this is mainly what I wanted to get into. The Conservative Premier out in New Brunswick is being like really fucking like
a possible
fascist, right? When it comes to like LGBTQ people. So
rebellion in his caucus after the government announced changes to LGBTQ policy in schools. It aims to dictate when a student is allowed to change their name or pronoun without parental consent. In response,
and like here's the thing about this, right? Sometimes school is their safe place, right? Because if you have like a very fucking conservative parent and you know you're LGBTQ and have a preferred name or for preferred pronouns going or to go by, yeah, chances are is you're gonna get fucking beaten when you're at home, right? So, you know, and it's not like, you know, people don't care about fucking pronouns or whatever. Like, fuck, if you call like a conservative by the inverse of their pronouns, they get super fucking triggered by it, and it's really funny.
6 ministers and 2 backbenchers refused to sit this morning in the legislature. Here's what the Premier had to say.
But we're taking a strong position for families and working with children in a new and a constructive way to help them through very vulnerable years. And we know there are vulnerable kids that need extra help and assistance, and we think parents should be part of that. It potentially could force an election. That's a possibility.
It's a possibility. Would you do that?
Would I do that? It's not without the realm of possibility. I believe that strongly in the case of finding a solution here where we do not exclude parents in their child's life.
Jacques Poitras is CBC New Brunswick's provincial affairs reporter. We've reached him in Fredericton. Jacques, that was you. They're asking the question, would you do that? Is Premier Higgs, he's threatening this over the so-called Policy 713. Do you think it will come to an election?
Well,
Good.
It did not come today. Let
It
me tell
could,
you
but
what
I don't
happened.
think it will.
These 8 MLAs and ministers put out this statement and didn't show up for the House this morning. And this afternoon, there was a bill scheduled to be voted on from the opposition, from the Green Party, to ban fracking and shale gas development in New Brunswick. This is an issue that's close to the Premier's heart. And if 8 members were sitting out his caucus, the government would lose that vote. The bill would advance. Well, in the end, we don't know what happened, but the ministers and the MLAs did show up and they did vote down the bill. But there's several days left before they break for the summer and several more bills to come in the next week.
Okay, so he seems to have avoided that, but what is he trying to change in this policy?
Well, it's you know, the words are very important in this policy, and one of the key elements in the existing policy that this government adopted just a couple of years ago says that kids in school, including kids under 16, can adopt a new name and pronoun at school within the classroom environment without their parents being told. Now, everything the Premier's been saying for the last 3 weeks implied that that was going to go. When we look at the new wording today, it seems to be that it allows for circumstances to continue where parents would not be told. But on the other hand, there's wording that's been taken out that would suggest that teachers are not going to be obligated or as obligated to respect those choice of names and pronouns. So
which is so fucking stupid, right? You know, it like I said, pronouns Like I said, pronouns matter, right? Like, it's something that people really fucking care about.
We're still sort of parsing the wording to try to figure out exactly how this will all shake down, but the LGBTQ plus community is seeing it as weakening the policy.
Okay, so concern over the policy, internal concern over how this happened with 6 ministers and 2 backbenchers refusing to sit this morning in the legislature. Today's crisis maybe not completely boiling over, but what the heck happens next with something like this?
Well, if you look at the statement by the 8 members, including 6 ministers, these are core ministers. These are ministers responsible for housing, for local government, for these are the competent ministers that keep this government running. They didn't actually mention the policy, so this was the tipping point, but they talk about a lack of transparency and a lack of process. There have been problems within this caucus for quite some time, and I'm not sure that whatever happened today is the end of this, because the frustrations go beyond one issue. So we will see. There's an election due in November 2024. A lot of questions about whether the Premier will stick around for it, and that is all in the mix as well.
But Jacques, just as a final question, if these are the ministers that keep things running, as you say, and they're frustrated enough to do this, even if it doesn't cause an election maybe today, I mean, what does this tell us about the security of Blaine Higgs' premiership, his leadership of the party?
Well, there's no indication he would go quietly if he'll go if he doesn't want to. But this has been a question that's been hanging over him for a year or two, because he's going to be 69 years old. He is 69 years old this year. And he certainly has a very hands-on style of management that has created some turmoil with some ministers at different times. One quit last October over something. So we will see.
I mean, is that really surprising, though?
I don't think the end of the story is written yet on this.
Okay, Jacques, thank you so much. That's the CBC Jacques Poitras in Fredericton, New Brunswick. For more on this story, we've reached Gail Costello. She was a teacher for over 30 years and is now the co-chair of Pride in Education. She also played a role in establishing the original policy, and she joins me now. Gail, it's good to speak with you.
Good to speak with you too.
From your experience, how will these changes to the policy affect students?
I know they've been talking the past few weeks about how they were going to strengthen this policy, but by far this has weakened this policy. I think it's going to put students in a really vulnerable position. Before, students were very comfortable in schools, around their friends and around teachers, coming up to teachers and saying, this is my preferred name or this is my preferred pronoun. I think there's going to be a lot of distrust now. The policy is going to push kids in the closet more than they have been in many, many, many years. And
he's right.
It's going to just put them in harm's way.
How many kids do you think might be affected by this, Gail? Have you got a sense of how big the population is that could be affected by this policy?
I mean, what difference does it make, right? Like, no. Say, say, someone's name is Thomas, right? They can have a preferred name being like Tom or Tommy, right? So I don't really understand why there should be that big of a difference when someone who is trans or whatever being like, it's I have a preferred name and this is what it is, right? Where I have preferred pronouns. Cares, right? Not a big fucking issue, and conservatives are just making it a big issue for the sake of, causing wedge issues.
Not exactly. If you look at the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, It's not just trans kids or non-binary kids that use pronouns or sometimes use different names. And if you look at the stats on that, they often say around 10%, but in New Brunswick schools, they just did a student survey, and the numbers seem to be extremely high of kids who identified as part of the community or non-binary at around 21%.
Right. Okay, that's a bigger number than you see in a lot of the data on this. So that's an interesting thing to note. I wonder, though, it's only been about a year and a half since this original policy was introduced. Why do you think they decided to review it and make changes so soon?
Probably because of all the legislation that's being passed in America. That's why. That's most likely why.
So what we've learned is that when this policy was released about a year and a half ago, Premier Higgs was not in favor of it at that time. And at the time, the Minister of Education, Dominic Carty, signed off on it, and it went out to the public. And I just believe that it's been a personal bias since that time that Premier Higgs has been trying to revoke this policy or make changes to it. And like I said, they keep calling it strengthening it, but what they definitely have not strengthened it. All along, they kept talking about affirming parents' rights, and so they may have strengthened it from a parent's point of view, but they certainly have not strengthened it from a child's point of view or a kid's point of view.
It seems to have sparked a bit of a caucus revolt for Premier Higgs. If he drove this personally, as you suggest, and certainly their actions seem to validate that, I mean, do you think he can hold his ground in the face of sort of the political pushback he's getting already from his own team?
I'm not sure. We've been hearing rumblings for the past week or so of certain MLAs who were speaking out and who, behind the scenes were talking about not being happy with this. And I can't imagine that they are happy with it. Yesterday, the Premier and Minister Hogan announced that they had full caucus support, that everybody supported them 100%. And then several MLAs came out after that saying that they had never laid eyes on it, that the Premier had made.
I mean, that's just the conservative strategy, though. They say everyone supports them, but yet, that shit happens. Or this shit happens. They're just a bunch of fucking liars.
Had announced to them that they had made changes, but would not allow anybody to see it. So I can't imagine being part of a political party where they don't even trust you to see the policy changes that are being made, and then go public and speak for you and say that you are in 100% agreement.
This is a New Brunswick-specific policy, but, things get copied and they move across the country. Do you have any sense of whether you think other provinces might follow suit on this, or is this something that's contained to New Brunswick, you think?
Oh, absolutely will.
No, I think we are in a really front position here. I know that people have been watching across Canada. It's kind of like the Florida situation. Once things started happening in Florida, then other states picked it up and started revoking human rights. And this has been a big concern of ours. And as much as, the Conservative Party thinks that they have strengthened this and made this policy stronger, they haven't. And we know that the eyes of Canada have been on us, and it definitely is not stronger. I believe they've put the kids in a bit of a blackmail situation. Anybody under the age of 16 now who wants to use pronouns or a different name, teachers are not supposed to do that. And the policy is very confusing now. The policy was not confusing before, although they claimed it was, but now it's extremely confusing because this morning, Minister Hogan had a press conference and read off all the changes and had discussions with reporters and answered several questions. And then when we actually printed off the policy and looked at it, many of the things that he discussed are not in the policy. If you compare the policy from yesterday
Are we
to
surprised,
today,
though?
they're virtually exactly the same, except a few things that are missing. And some of those missing points are very key. They change the intention of the entire section of that part of the policy, but certainly more confusing.
I want to just jump in with one last question, if I can, because we're just getting a bit tight on time. But obviously, the explicit direction of the old policy is gone. It's a grayer sort of area that creates the confusion that you sort of walk through. What's your advice to any student who's maybe put in a difficult situation because of these changes?
Well, first of all, they can't force you to go to counseling. It's very 1970s-ish to act like there's something wrong with these kids. There's nothing wrong with them. They don't need professional counseling, and they don't have to come out if they don't want to. So this is the blackmail situation that I'm talking about, in that they're saying that teachers will not be able to use their preferred pronouns or names unless they go to counseling and get counseled to come out to their parents. Well, students do have rights, and I would just
True.
tell students to
Kids actually do have rights. Like the right to be included in decision-making processes affect them. For example,
stick to your guns. You do not have to go to counseling, and you can use pronouns and preferred names when you want. Teachers will support you. They've been doing it for a long time, and I trust that they will continue to do so.
no, don't. Fun. Jump down. Applaud me on the way down. Jump back up.
I got a bunch.
I found it. So, kids do actually have rights in
Bunch of people responding to one of my posts telling me that children don't have rights. Fun fact, yes indeed they do, as Canada is a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, granting children the right to non-discrimination, decision-making in the best interests of the child, the right to life and development, and this one's real important, the right to participation. They have the right to give their opinions in matters that affect them and to have their voices heard. So I am begging you, stop treating your children like property. They're people. You don't own them. Get over this legalistic view of parenting. There isn't some switch that flips when they turn 18 years old where they're suddenly fully developed people. Involve them in their own upbringing. Stop acting like you own them. That is a very quick path to not talking to them as adults.
Yeah, you won't talk to your fucking kids if you. No. Rat. All right, so let's get into the landlord shit that happened. So for those who don't know, a landlord killed a couple that was renting from them. No. Clap. A board member with a small ownership, Landlords of Ontario, an organization of landlords that has lobbied ministers in Ford's government, has deleted an insensitive tweet claiming dysfunction at the landlord-tenant board pushed a Hamilton area landlord to kill his tenant. In Stony Creek on Saturday, this a little bit old, so not this Saturday, an electrician and an education assistant were shot dead, according to Hamilton police, and the suspect is their landlord, who allegedly opened fire after an altercation over the state of the rental unit. So what most likely happened is the fucking landlord raised rent prices on them, right? And they couldn't afford it or whatever, and they were being given pushback. So, Ravron Sir Skrandra, a property manager with Skrandra Property Management, a past landlord and a board member with the small ownership Landlords of Ontario, took to Twitter to offer his interpretation of the events. Skrandra claimed that the Hamilton area landlord was pushed to murder his tenants by the failures of the landlord-tenant board. Said landlords taking matters into their own hands is not something I encourage. Reskra wrote before warning that this is what happens when we do not have fundamental tribunals. That was a very careless tweet that has since been deleted. Skrandra told Press Progress previously in 2020. Skrandra led a landlord protest against the COVID-19 evictions moratorium. Skrandra said, Skrandra was asked to clarify if he meant how he was, or how he now deleted the tweet, and the tenant, and that the tenant board backlog makes it too difficult otherwise to get a tenant removed. Yes, Skrandra said. On its website, Solo claims to be an organization, Landlords Helping Landlords. Its Facebook page regularly calls out deadbeat tenants across Ontario and calling regulations a war on small landlords. Yes, hi. Hi. Now lay down. Good. Despite no official registrations in Ontario's lobby registry, it's a website feature says it has had meetings with Ontario government minister, including Attorney General Doug Donnelly, Dunsley, Housing Minister Stephen Clark, and Doug Ford. Contacted by Press Progress, a spokesperson for Solo distanced the organization from the tweet. Our deepest condolences go to all those who were affected by the tragic events that unfolded in Stony Creek over the weekend. Loved ones will need time to grieve, and the community will need time to make sense of what has unfolded. Law enforcement will need their time to do their investigation to determine what exactly happened here. Vice Chair Rose Marie contacted Press Progress to further clarify, we do not condone that type of action. We don't know the person who owned the property. Marie declined to say if Skrandra had stepped down before using the opportunity to question why the media noticed his tweet. What I find interesting is that we've tried to reach so many people in the press before, but now they're calling today. Well, yeah, it's to get the scoop. Like, you know, I'm honestly surprised this hasn't been happening more often, to be honest with you, because landlords are fucking pieces of shit. Asked if it had something to do with the murder-related tweet, Marie offered further thoughts. I understand that people are interested in the comment that our director made, Marie said, but then complained that few the press that are interested most in the truth of some of the situation. Asked for a further comment, Marie declined, saying it will be used to vilify us. I mean, I'm sure that there's something that happened there within Solo, right? Like, no shot that, you know, things weren't, or this landlord wasn't pushed by Solo to fucking, you know, do something. I can only go off of like assumptions, whatever. So I don't know, but like, shit is just psychotic. Advocacy groups say tensions between landlords and renters are at an all-time high in the wake of the Hamilton landlord killing of two tenants. Police told CBC Hamilton detectives are investigating if a conflict over a mold complaint occurred right before the landlord killed 27-year-old Carcia McDonald and her 28-year-old fiance Aaron Stone on May 27th. The landlord's 57 died a few hours in a shootout with police. Police have not released the name of the landlord and neighbors say also lived in the home. Terry Gerald Barrick owned the house, according to property records. The landlord and tenant board, the tribunal that hears complaints and requests by both landlords and tenants, said it has had no applications related to the property in the last 2 years. The city bylaw department said it hadn't been any complaints in the recent years. While there are still many unanswered questions about the circumstances leading to the shootings, the situation he advocates speaking out about conflicts between landlords and tenants. They say what happened in Hamilton was an extreme case of and is inexcusable, and also say it separate from the long list of complaints about the about the LTB and its role to resolve conflict. After this, I'm just going to end stream. Today. Mike Wood, chair of Hamilton Tenants in Unity, told CBC News that because of what he says is raising tension between landlords and tenants, news about the shootings were disgusting, but totally didn't totally surprise him. We've seen this coming through the pipeline, he said. Kimberly Farewell, a Hamilton-based paralegal who specializes in landlord and tenant disputes, said the behavior of some landlords is beyond ridiculous. Yeah, I completely understand that because, you know, I've seen some of the shit that I've seen some of the shit that landlords do. Absolutely inexcusable. Going on the property and you have the lawful right to do it, but you do not have the lawful right to control somebody else's life, she said. Should you expect Bart? Bart? You should not expect to be fearful of your landlord for coming in with a weapon. Unfortunately, we are in the age and stage that, yes, we absolutely have to be worried about that. Bobakar Ba, founder and chairperson of small ownership Landlords of Ontario, who has also been a landlord for decades. The situation between landlord and renters is worse than ever. I wonder why. Maybe because it's, the fact that landlords keep fucking raising and raising and raising their prices as, wages grow more and more stagnant. Could that be an issue? That's an issue. I've gotten desperate phone calls from landlords who have been assaulted, who are getting racially abused tenants, destroying property, said. I mean, to be fair, though, like, most of the fucking shit that landlords do is like nothing, right? So, like, it's the classic having the fucking outlet that doesn't work that's like painted over. That's the landlord specialty right there. Peter Jalowski, a paralegal in the Nigeria region focused on landlords and tenant issues, he said, has also seen issues escalate to violence over issues that as small as whether people should leave their shoes in the commissary halls. I've seen tenants get into fistfights over that, said. Fired, hey? The mentality of some landlords needs to change, said Farrell. If you don't want to rent out your property and be a landlord, then abide by the law. Then you shouldn't be in the property business at all, she said. Boss said landlords can also be at the mercy of abusive tenants. Feel there's nowhere to get help. He said this one solution is to tighten the screening processes for tenants, and also said landlords and tenant and renters should approach their respective advocacy groups in troubleshooting. Many small landlords don't even know the LTB exists, or not many people know the bylaw. Office boss said. At the very end of the day, we are all in it together. Ugh. I fucking hate it when people say this shit. But yeah, they have the audacity to be like fucking landlord. Ever. So fucking disgusting. Farrell agreed that more education is needed. She said a provincially run emergency phone line that either party can call for immediate advice would help de-escalate escalate situations. The landlord licensing system should systems that require ongoing training their rights and responsibilities. Tools. End stream. Like it's all the same. Right? Like all the same stuff. Like it's completely disgusting. Like it's completely disgusting that happened, but it's not unsurprising, right? All right, I'm probably gonna end stream. I don't know, something's been going on lately with it, so I do not know what to do. So I'm just gonna end stream here. So yeah, you know, fuck the PPC first of all. Go out and vote if you've managed to stick around this long. I've already mentioned earlier that you should go out and vote, but you know, go out and vote. And yeah, I hope everyone has a good day. Hopefully I can stream tomorrow. I'm not sure if I will be able to though. This rat, man. Say hi to people. Okay, I think that's where I'm gonna end it. But yeah, it's been great. Hopefully we don't have any other issues. Oh. I can't eat that. You can't eat my mic. Can't eat my mic. Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay, I'll see everyone later.